Hello, everyone. You're listening to How We Heal, the podcast. I'm Kira Noel, medical intuitive, your host. Our sponsor is themedicinebuddhawithin.com. Intuitive training for all. Check out the website and register and be invited to all the upcoming trainings. Now let's begin our show. Welcome, everyone, to How We Heal, the podcast with me, Kira Noel, your host. Today, my guest is Anula Courtis. She is the town supervisor of Woodstock, New York. I say that with great enthusiasm because I'm pretty clear she's one of the most awakened beings I know, and we are so lucky she got up to the top of the ladder. I know there's another ladder to climb coming up in her world, so I'm really glad today to hear more about how you bring your unique view to your community and your vision for this community, which I think is, pretty specific and astounding. Thank you, Anula, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Kier.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. You are the town of Woodstock supervisor.
I am, yes. Yep.
And what prompted you to this lecture?
It was a very interesting journey. Actually, this is a position that I never thought I would seek. And back when the Women's March started, I actually co-founded the Woodstock, New York Women's March here in Woodstock. And it was a rather successful event. I think our first march, we had over 1,000 people, and the second march, we had over 2,000 people. Through that work and meeting different people, I had the opportunity to work through helping to start our very first Human Rights Commission here in Woodstock. And I was selected by the board to be the chair of that Human Rights Commission. And I did that for 2 terms or 4 years in total. And it really woke up inside of me a whole different part of me that I really didn't even realize existed. So it was something I was bringing to my work in my corporate world work in the past, but it was so much more exciting in the world of human rights because there was no firm template with how you approach the work. And so it was an opportunity for me to work with a fantastic group of individuals, all of them well established in things that they had done in their career. All of them were older than I was, and I had the utmost respect for them. And we just gelled and we did really, really good things in Woodstock. The town board at the time was super excited for some of the things that we were doing. And we innovated, we created, we led, we wrote policy for the town of Woodstock. We modified some of our laws here in Woodstock. We're really working hard to protect individuals. We also heard individual cases where people felt that things could have been handled better. And it was an amazing experience. And at some point, I realized that the work was really hard if you didn't have a seat at the table. So we would try to change police policy, for example, and we wanted our police officers to not work with ICE or Customs and Border Patrol unless there was a judicial warrant. And at the time, nobody else was really talking about that work. So it was a bit ahead of our time. And so I ran for council. I did not take another term as chair of the Human Rights Commission. I ran to become a council person here in Woodstock, thinking, all right, it'd be nice to have 1 foot in activism and 1 foot, behind the table, making decisions and having a vote. So I ran for that position and I won. And the 2 years that I served as a council person were pretty amazing. We did a lot of things. Some of the things that stand out for me, one of the first things actually was we passed some legislation to help our fire and rescue workers have a 10% property tax reduction. I realized early on that those folks volunteer night and day. It was almost like a very busy full-time job for them, and they were not getting a dime. And so this was an opportunity to recognize their work and to give them some type of a financial acknowledgement of all of their hard work for the town of Woodstock, and just amazing work showing up when everybody else wants to run in the other direction. So that was very rewarding out of the gate. And I just kept going for those 2 years. And I realized at that point and was asked to consider running for town supervisor. And I did. Again, not something that I ever thought of I would do, but I like the job. It's a position where you can work with community members to effect change that immediately impacts somebody's life. And
That's a nice.
it's fantastic. I mean, some things are far out, and you have to think about the longer term, path toward fixing things or improving things, however we want to phrase that. But there's so much opportunity to affect people's lives, whether they were wronged in some way or something is troubling them, that the town could step in and immediately just help relieve that situation. Um, we have the opportunity to protect people, protect our land, things like that. So it's really rewarding. And here I am. So that's my path here.
Well, so you are the only, am I correct, the only woman who ever had this position?
No, I'm the third woman. So,
Oh,
well, just short and sweet. There were two women before me, and I'm the third. So I like the number three. I think that's a good thing.
that's good. There's been some rough softening of the rough edges, and well, wonderful news that there is political voice for
Yeah.
women in high, places of power. And
Yes.
I'm hearing inside of what you're sharing. I'm hearing a great enthusiasm for helping people. A lot of
Mm.
help about you. It doesn't sound like you're. Well, I want to, build a building with my name on it, kind of girl.
No.
That's not your agenda. I read that you wanted it to be a walkable town, which I love the idea. I want to share very briefly. I thought of a raised walkable platform across 375, which would require, rites of passage for each property raised up to the height of like a tram, and it would be called Bowie Way. And it would allow us to walk, and it would be funded by Bowie's family and allow us to walk from the 28 all the way through town. And I even drew a little picture because I have visions of things. So
I
I'm
love
laying that
it.
on your plate there, Anula.
Well, I love it. I love the name, and I love that it helps to make Woodstock more walkable, safely. And I also love that you even thought about how it's going to be funded. So
Well,
that
without the money, nothing can happen in any town.
that's right, 100% exactly.
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
run into his, his wife who lives here occasionally in the gym. So I'm like, maybe I'll tell her one day. I've been thinking about it for 20 years. I'm not sure it's happening right now.
I can just envision the animals using that as well. So we might have a coyote, a fox, a few
Yeah,
humans.
some feeding stations up there for the nighttime. They're safe. They go up high.
A bear or two.
You took it a whole nother level. Thank you. So it sounds like you're in a creative position, a position of activation of powerful change. Are you getting any pushback from the community about these wonderful ideas you have? If you want to
Yeah.
share
So
about that.
absolutely. So there's always pushback, and that's fine, right? There's a lot of value in some of the pushback. So we listen to that. The idea for making Woodstock more walkable is from the green to Schoonmaker, the sidewalks will be fixed, and we're calling that the Department of Transportation project. So it's a pretty big project. Our sidewalks would be fixed, which is wonderful, and 4 bridges would be repaired as well, which is really nice. It would be a big project. And through listening to some of the pushback, we eliminated some things that were common denominator pushback items. And I think that there's a very strong acceptance for that part of the project. And what we're doing now is thinking about, well, what about the rest of Woodstock? So we've got from Schoonmaker and that post office, and there's this idea of building a path of some sort from one post office to the other post office out in Bearsville. We have the new libraries out in that direction. We've got the Cub Market out there. And so the idea would be to make it more walkable. Perhaps people would shop there and that might help their business. Same with Sunfrost. We also have the Bearsville Flats, and we have a large number of Woodstockers who live there. And from what I hear from the community, people do not want to walk. They do not feel that it's safe to walk. So even though they're very close to, let's say, Sunfrost, they're not really going there unless they drive. And oftentimes when people get in their cars, they're going to go do a bigger shop and hit multiple stores. So there could be lost business opportunity there. But there is pushback there because I think that there was a lot of misunderstanding. There was not open communication about the idea before I took office. And I realized that people were protesting something that was actually not real. It just was misinformation.
That sounds like Woodstock.
It was very much like Woodstock. And, and honestly, through no fault of people, because it just hadn't bubbled up to a public meeting. So one of the things that I did in my first few months in office was work with Complete Streets to actually have a public meeting. And we invited the engineer and the Department of Transportation to participate in that. And it was extremely successful. I think there were probably about 150 people present, and people had a chance to see the plans as they were at that time. Then there was a breakout session so they could go into a whole nother room and chat with people and get answers to the questions and look at the maps. So all of this was kind of printed out, and really good feedback came out of that. So that helped to incorporate good pushback feedback, but at the same time, clear up a lot of doubts that people had, or, just, the rumor mill was going. So that was very beneficial, and we'll continue to do that. We have continued to get fantastic input from community members who really go out of their way to do research and come back with something very constructive. And I think a lot of it is very workable. And so we will continue to make that plan better. But the idea is that we should be able to walk to town, to our shops, to our neighbors, and not intrude too much upon the environment. So how do we do that in a responsible and environmentally responsible way? But at the same time, I've seen photos of people pushing a baby carriage along 212, and the baby carriage is crooked, and it's simply not okay. So we're trying to think bigger outside of
Yeah.
the box. And also just this idea of allowing us space to breathe. Everything seems very consolidated around the center of town. So I'm very, very interested in working with businesses and doing things that help us to have a bigger Woodstock that is possibly a little less crowded and jammed up.
That's a good idea so how many people in Woodstock year round now? Do you know?
Well, we have over 6,000. Some people say that probably half are here full time. I don't know that we have an accurate count on that.
Yeah, well, this is small town USA.
Yes.
And I want to tell the audience, we are a town that does not have a Starbucks. We do not have any mall-like store environments. It's privately owned businesses that people that own them run them and care about them. You come into Woodstock, you meet real people doing a job. And we have grown quite a bit in terms of the culinary arts. I've noticed I moved here 24 years ago, and there was like 2 restaurants. So we have a wonderful array of restaurants, including a lot of vegan options. So putting my plug in for Woodstock. So Anula, you're not from Woodstock, right? Where are you originally from?
So I was born in Albany, spent the first few years of my life in Schenectady, New York. Then my family moved to New Jersey, where my dad had a restaurant. And so I spent a large number of years in New Jersey. And then growing up, I went to NYU, spent some time living in New York, but eventually made my way to Woodstock. So I have just entered my 12th year here.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when you moved up.
Yeah.
Well, this is a very unusual community in my life experience of, we are staunch supporters of our personal, private, individual beingness, and we're not going to give up our rights. That's who we are here, all of us. I wouldn't qualify us as one political party or another. I think we're just really strong, willful people. And when a change is offered to Woodstock in 24 years I've been here, it drags on because people want to have their input. They want to say it. How is that going for you? Do you have a lot of slowdown in the process of things?
Yes and no. I realized exactly what you said, that things were getting stalled. For instance, like 10 years of a stall for some affordable housing. And we had some zoning changes that were so overwhelming for people that it didn't only stall, it died. Okay. And it was unfortunate in a way because we have volunteers. One of the other things I want to add is we have fantastic volunteers here. And those folks dedicated years of their lives to help to update zoning codes and things like that, and to look at affordable housing. And it was just like you said, too much all at once and not enough communication, or things just weren't structured in a way where people felt heard. Again, it's always easy to see things in retrospect. So I did notice that it is something that I bring to the table in my leadership style, where I go almost out of my way to attempt to set up, extra meetings. So it's more work on myself in my office, but this way I can hear people's concerns and then incorporate it where and as necessary, and also share what I'm hearing from other people. So it's a real exchange. And we're looking at some affordable housing now. And actually we've jump started it. We've bubbled that conversation up to the town board level where the public can hear the discussion with housing and hear the vote, hear each council person and what they are thinking about the various properties. So more discussion is encouraged, and people are very receptive to that because they're hearing things that maybe they didn't think of. And also they use their time at the end of the meeting to talk about their point of view. So I guess what I'm saying is it's more of an exchange. Also, when I think about significant change, especially for controversial things, moderate works. So it doesn't have to be the 100% thing right now. What we might be happy with is half of the ultimate goal. Um, and let's see how it's going and adapt if and as necessary. So that actually works. And I think it's quite the reverse so far. I'm surely expecting a slowdown at some point on a topic. But right now, certain things are moving a little bit faster, and it's exciting.
That's wonderful. This job, it requires a lot of, I guess, interaction with everyone to get that momentum going.
Yeah.
And that's a skill. So,
Uh,
yeah, so it's just, you came into this work, and I think of you, from what I've read, as kind of an architect of, programs and how to develop more capable supportive programs for underserved people.
mhm.
So, in that version of yourself as an architect of programming and a creator of something, do you bring those ideas to this work you're doing here in Woodstock now as a supervisor?
Yeah, most definitely. I think there are some core values that are always gonna be there for me. And then within that, um, the creative part of it, running those ideas past people, hearing what works, what doesn't work, their excitement, their lack of excitement, all of that. I guess it is a skill that I'm able to kind of pick that up, and then also in talking to many different people who travel in different circles in Woodstock to find common denominators, the things that we all agree on, or most of us agree on. And then that becomes the first part that we focus on. So we have a stronger buy-in out of the gate, and we'll worry about the next part, once we see how this is working. So that kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I'm
We don't need like 40 units of housing. What if we do 12? And that's fine.
right, and I imagine because of your background, you can walk into a room full of, community members and see the difficult ones and gravitate to invite them to the mic right away. Just get it over with. Let's not waste any time. You
Uh,
can't call them difficult ones, but I can. I've been to some of those environments, and it's like it's pretty hard. It's hard to manage, because these are real people. These are, I guess,
yeah.
we are entrenched in the idea. This is 40 mules and an acre. When you were in the 40, I think they gave everybody an acre and a mule. And if you found Woodstock and you're one of this lucky 6,000 who live here year round or most of the year,
Yeah.
you don't want anybody messing with your land. We
Yeah. Yeah.
don't. You know,
Yeah. It's a tough town. Oh my goodness. I just want to say one thing, no invitation required. So some folks find their way to the mic or have their own built-in microphone from their seat.
I love it. That's
Yeah.
a Woodstocker.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're working very hard. Is this a 40-hour job or a 90-hour a week job? What is it like for you?
It is definitely not a 40 a week job. It is a lot more than that. So thinking about my first few weeks in office, we had the worst blizzard in 10 years, I think, Storm Fern. And so I think I didn't sleep for about 3.5 days. So Woodstock I declared a state of emergency for us. We had crews out there day and night clearing the parking spots and knocking on doors, asking people to move their vehicles. And we had highway crews out all night. The updates were pouring in from the county. They were actually amazing in their communication and keeping supervisors up to date with different emergencies. We opened up the community center. And so there was, we had to swiftly find volunteers to drop food off, drop water off, just be there. It was amazing. So there was very little sleep. And as a new supervisor, that was quite a big moment when you realize that everybody's looking at you to figure out what happens with
Mm.
this storm, that instead of kind of easing up in its power, was going the opposite direction into the dark red category.
Yeah,
Usually
that
these
was an
things
intense
kind of cool
experience.
off. Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
big.
That was a moment, believe me.
Huge. Huge.
It was.
So you put a huge amount of time into this because it kind of requires that you're pretty much 24/7 on call, right?
Yes and no. So I do try to make sure that I get some rest and that I uh, delegate to people and let them know that they are truly empowered to take certain situations on. I don't have to be the end all be all decision maker. I'm not a micromanager. I can be, but I don't prefer that style of management. And so I spent some time with people who could respond in an emergency, building out a process for when and where they call me. So to tag on to that storm, we had, I think it was like 4-foot snowbanks, and they were blocking the fire hydrants. And so, of course, we had a fire.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
literally 2 days before, one of the fire chiefs came in and said, "Hey, Anula, sometime in the near future, open that up." And so thankfully, we acted very swiftly on that. Water, sewer went out there. They dug that out. And sure enough, the last day of January into the first day of February, there was a very large fire and we needed that water. And thankfully we had it. So, but the delegation, like, this town has really good employees. We've got some phenomenal people. They've been doing their job. They take things seriously. And thankfully, we're able to work together and build that trust very swiftly so that, things were executed upon and we are safe. So I do respond to those larger issues, but I do not believe in micromanaging our chief of police or anything like that. And I wouldn't be able to bring my best self. So there are weeks where I work 70 hours. There are weeks where I work a little bit less. There are weeks where I work a little bit more, but I do try to carve out some type of downtime for myself and head off into the woods somewhere close by, but still somewhere in the woods.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's a huge job. I gotta
Yeah.
tell you, that's huge.
Yeah.
So what do you do for fun? Tell us
I
about
go off into the woods.
you walk into the woods close by.
Mostly close by. Yes. So the best couple, they're my friends. They're an elder couple. They know all the ins and outs of the trails here in Woodstock and beyond. And so what we do is we pack up and off we go with my 2 dogs. And we'll spend 4 or 5 hours just literally often in the middle of nowhere. And it's absolutely fantastic.
Oh, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, you have 2 dogs and you live in town, right? You live in
Yes.
town.
Yep.
You have yeah, it's I would say the quintessential Woodstock place of, beauty, kind of like, what was that? It's not I think of many novels where you go into the secret garden, that's it, like the secret garden to space.
Yeah.
We won't
Yeah.
tell you where she is because she needs her
Right.
space, and so you have this work, it's propelling, it's compelling, and don't you're about to run again for your position, is that what's going on? Tell us
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, so my position should have been 2 years, and there was a lawsuit in New York State. The lawsuit was to take supervisor races and races and put them in the even year election cycle. So we kind of get wrapped up with, the big shots out there. And the lawsuit happened when I won my election, and 9 days into my term, I had to announce that I was running all over again for my full 2-year term. So I did announce 9 days in,
I'm laughing.
storms and all. It was pretty crazy. I mean, but I did. I went to the Democratic Party. I am a Democrat. and I announced that I'm here to run again. So I do not have an opponent at this point in time uh, from the Democratic Party. There still could be an independent or a Republican down the road, but for right now, I am running unopposed to have a full 2-year term.
You haven't run away from the job yet, so congratulations, Woodstock. You didn't scare her off yet.
Not yet, no. Actually, the community is it's really interesting. So just when you have that day where you think, "Oh my goodness, what did I sign up for?" It's like somebody in the world of Woodstock gets it, and that's the day they choose to either send you a box of cookies. So I received a box of cookies from Sherwood Forest, where Robin Hood and Maid Marian live. So I don't know who sent the cookies, but thank you. They were really well received. We get 3/4 of a bagel sometimes from another individual who's very kind and drops off 3/4 of a bagel several times a month. So, um, so we have these moments of kindness that just remind me that it's about people at the end of the day.
Hmm.
There's just this kindness that is here as well.
Well, what's it catches me and I guess captures me about Woodstock is that it is a small town. And when you go to the stores, and I go to the stores in town regularly, they know my name.
Hmm.
And they know generally if it's a coffee place, they know my order. And all my fellows are there, so I can chat with someone. And it's that tiny little feeling. I grew up in Queens, New York, and it was a homogenized place filled with people from all over the world. But there was a lot of a small town feeling there.
Yeah.
And so when I moved here from New York, from the New York City, I was in shock at first and thought, God, there's nothing open after 9 o'clock. It was terrifying. I lived in town across from CVS. I could not move away from the town because I didn't want to be in any darkness at night. I was living in Park Slope with the garbage trucks picking up. I needed noise and dirt. And after a while, I was like, who would want to live any other way?
Yeah.
Why would we live with the discomfort, that comes with that? I guess the giant condensed version of life in
Yeah.
cities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of gets you. It gets you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, the darkness here is beautiful. The quiet at night is fantastic. It really is a very special place. And yes, everywhere you go, it's kind of like Cheers. Somebody know, you always bump into somebody who you know.
It's true. And I've seen you in coffee shops talking to a person that you've hang out with, or he's on the board, or they're involved in the community. And it's so natural to always just hang out and talk to people.
Yeah.
It isn't a lost art form in Woodstock. But you
No,
can, though, if you're missing the New York feeling, you can go to one of our fabulous bigger restaurants and people are on their cell phones. So don't you worry, you can have both here.
that's right. And the restaurants are spectacular. I mean, one is better than the next. I mean, it's great.
They're fabulous restaurants. I'll mention is the Garden Cafe because Leah, she's fabulous
Yeah.
and the food is fantastic. So if you have never tried vegan, go there. All
Yeah,
right.
they're phenomenal. So that's a good plug for her. Actually, I took our congressman there who's not vegan, and he actually at first said, "All right, well, what am I going to get?" And then he picked something, but he thought that two of us would share it. He ended up demolishing his plate. He loved it, and he's been back there several times since.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not a vegan, but I love that place. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
great
just
food.
fantastic.
It's great food. Anula, if anybody wants to talk to you who's interested in getting involved in politics in their town, small or large,
Yeah,
becoming a voice of, what I hear you sharing about and the work you're interested in doing is about helping human beings.
yeah,
You're not seeing politics as a way towards self gratification. It's not a place for you to be in control and in charge. You want to share the total experience with everyone involved. And it just feels like a normal way to handle communities that need support through their political, the organizations that we want in place.
yeah.
It feels like opposite land from where we are in the world outside.
Yeah, 100%. They're actually quite the opposite. I really don't seek the spotlight. It comes with the job, and I understand that, but this is really, it's about a community, and a community in some senses healing, and a community moving forward and figuring out as we move forward who are we? Who do we want to be? And how do we not lose everything that makes us and keeps us Woodstock? And that's really what this is about. At the end of the day, you
Yeah,
know,
no, I think that's message from you is loud and clear. So if somebody wants to ask you, I'm interested, I'm just started getting involved in my town and what are your thoughts on how do you contribute? How can I get involved? And they just want to reach out because you are in the position where you could mentor someone who actually wants to make a change and really make change in the world. And that's one of the reasons I invited you. How would they reach you?
yeah. So, email is a very good way. So supervisor at woodstockny.gov. I'm also on Facebook. So people who are on Facebook, you can reach out to me that way. And those are probably the two best ways to get in touch with me, or just call the town office.
Great. That's great. I love it. So any parting thoughts for the people you support, the people who support you? Any words you want to share with us as we finish our podcast together?
Yeah, the number of people who support is astonishing, and a big thank you to people who do support in many, many different ways. And to others, think about your community, this community, volunteering. At the end of the day, government, especially at this scale, like this is where we have a chance to make a difference. And it's us. I didn't think I would do this. Others never thought they would contribute in any way, shape, or form. But people are really essential to forming who a community is and making the decisions and just participating in the building of our future. So I think that my message would be, please consider stepping up and volunteering, supporting people who are running for office, who are doing a good job, who don't care about the limelight, but really care about the work. And it really, it takes all of us working together to get anything done.
That's true. Thank you so much, Anula. I very kind of astounded that you jumped in, that you're willing to put the hours in and trudge forward and be running again for the same office. And I'm sure, and I look forward to a smooth sailing through that process and not having too many obstructions along the way. So everyone listening, when you're in your town or in your local neighborhood, contribute to the story.
Yeah.
Anula is a great example of, when you have a vision, you can bring it and it has value. So thank you again for being here today. And I
Thank
hope
you
to
so
see you in
much.
town at the coffee shop.
I'm sure
Okay.
we'll see each other. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We want to thank the following people. Jennifer Maidman for original music. Listen to her on iTunes and Spotify. True English of Upstate Podcast Studio for sound and recording engineering. And all our executive producers. See you next time.